Welcome back to After Hours. Today we've got, this guy, an absolute legend. I've been so looking forward to getting him on the podcast. Doesn't really need an introduction. This is Sober David Wilson, One for the Road podcast, and an absolute juggernaut on Instagram on his podcast. He's an author. He's got his book on Audible, or you can buy it from Amazon. I believe he hated the process of doing the Audible, but I listened to it and it's an amazing book. His podcast, I'm completely up to date with that one. Every single episode is just brilliant and insightful and helpful, for myself and for people in recovery. Dave and I have been following each other I started following Dave just right back at the beginning when I got sober, so nearly 5 years ago. We kind of, we got in touch and Dave kindly invited me onto his podcast in, I think, 2023, which was just, amazing to share my own story. I did a live with him the following January. And it was just, when I started this podcast up, it was like, the first person that popped into my head to get on was I need to get Sober Dave on. So thankfully he agreed, and hopefully there's a few kind of insights that, as Dave has done so many podcasts previously. So I'm hoping that this is kind of a fresh look on his story. But, as with all my podcasts, it's really just a conversation about, our addiction, our recovery, and Dave will hate me for saying this, his journey. So, sit back, get your earpods on and enjoy. Thanks, guys. Here's Dave. Hi, Dave. Welcome to After Hours. I feel like I should call you Emperor Dave, because King's not enough for you, mate. You're just an absolute legend in the recovery sober world, and it's just an absolute honor to, I know we've done a couple of yours lives, and I was on your podcast, but it's such an honor to have you on After Hours, mate. So welcome. How are you today?
I'm very well, mate. For once, I've had a reasonably easy-ish day. My career has taken off massively in all areas, and we can cover that later on. But it goes to show what happens when you get sober. It opens certain doors that wouldn't open before. You know,
Yeah, and it's like I've been following you since the start of my sober journey nearly 5 years ago, and I think you're what, six and a half years now, so you're a bit ahead of me, but you see a lot of people coming and going in the sober community, but you just seem to be growing from strength to strength, mate. So we'll get on to that later on, but
yeah,
yeah, this is the thing. Everybody, I was chatting to someone the other day, and her friend, Jen and I were down having brunch, because that's what we do these days. It's all brunch,
yeah.
brunch. And so her mate was there, and she had a friend over from the UK, and she's got a really good Instagram account, but it's nothing to do with recovery or sobriety or anything like that. But yeah, she knew you, mate. So, it's obviously people have heard your story, but tell us a little bit about your childhood and when you had your first drink, mate, and we'll take it from there.
Oh, I cover it in brief, mate,
Yeah.
because I have told it a million times, but yeah, I grew up I was born in '64
Yeah.
on a council estate near Croydon, and my dad was a lorry driver. My mum worked in a factory, and we didn't really have any money, and we we would walk to school about 3 miles in the winter, and you'd see cars on bricks and stuff like that. It was that kind of childhood,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it was all right though, mate, because although we didn't have a lot of money, we had like a nice lifestyle. We ate well, and we had cozy nights in, and it was quite a secure childhood.
Yeah.
But then I got into my sort of early teens, and I recognised my mum and dad weren't getting on. And one day she left, and she didn't say anything to anyone. She just left, but she left a letter for me,
Mm-hmm.
and it just rocked my world, Jimmy, because I didn't know it was coming,
Yeah.
and it broke my dad. But in the meantime, we moved, and I started this secondary school, and I didn't really like all the what I would look at as the rough lot, because I had quite a closeted childhood,
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't streetwise, and I didn't like fighting and any of that business. And they were always going up the local school, car shorten boys,
Mm-hmm.
and having punch ups, and it was like me like hiding in the cloakroom so that I didn't have to go along with them. Anyway, they used to come around and knock for me quite a lot. And I used to say to my dad, tell him I'm not in, I'm out, or I'm ill or whatnot, because I didn't want to get involved. But my mum left, and then my dad met someone else really quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and she didn't like me. So I felt really rejected. I felt isolated, alone. And they come round, and I thought, you know what, I've got nothing to lose. So I was terrified. I went out of them,
Yeah.
and we went up the shops, and there's a place in Carshorn called the Circle, and there used to be a pub there called St Helier Arms, and it's, you only have to Google it to know that it was a pretty rough pub. There was a
Right.
murder in the car park,
Oof.
um, and but anyway, opposite there was an off license, and all these lads had pinched money off their dad or found it down the sofa and whatnot. And we used to
Yeah.
ask their adults to buy us beers and that.
Yeah.
And that's when I had my first drink at 14. And we talk about trauma and stuff like that. Now, what happened to me was quite traumatic.
Yeah.
It was a jolt to the system. And then my dad fell in love with this other woman and stuff like that. So there were worse cases, but, I think for a couple of years, my emotional needs weren't met anyway. I was, you know, not ignore, but, I
Well, it's
was
rejection, isn't it? And you're feeling like you've been rejected by your mother, and then your father finding this woman that doesn't like you. Again, rejection, and you're finding acceptance with these lads down at the bus shelter or whatever it was, down the
up the
park.
off license. And yeah,
Yeah.
so what happened was, Jimmy, was I had a beer, and I can't remember what it was, but it was a weak one.
Mm.
And then I had another one, and I started like saying things, and they were laughing their heads off. And I went, actually, you're not a nerd. You're all right. You are. You're quite funny. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, I grew my wings, and it was like, do you know what? I do fit in here. And, I had that incredible feeling of acceptance. And so that's where that started. And back then, you could go in pubs without ID. So there was a little pub there, the Skinner's Arms, and they had a dart team and a pool team. And so I used to play pool with the grown-ups, and they used to buy me a beer. And I grew up about 5 years in 10 minutes. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It was like, I'm one of them. And I'll honestly say, Jimmy, that I was drinking for 40 years, but the first 10
Hmm.
wasn't really problematic. It was normal, like everyone else, where you go clubbing or down the pub, but you wouldn't even think about having it at home after work. It just wasn't in the mix.
Hmm.
But it
Hmm.
was only till my late 20s that I'd moved into this flat. My next door neighbour bumped into me. He said, look, come down the local pub and meet the lads.
Hmm.
And I fitted in straight away because I was in the carpet trade, and there was plumbers, plasterers, mechanics, electricians, and I was
Yeah.
named Dave the Carpet. And my excuse was I used to get some work down there and what. But then I started going in there more and more.
Hmm.
And then I started getting a reputation for doing a whole shift from after work until the last bell went.
Like every night, are we talking? Yeah.
Most nights where I'd
Most
leave
nights.
the
Yeah.
van up the road, and then I'd walk home because it was 10-minute walk and that, and then do the walk of shame in the morning to the
Yeah.
van when everyone's driving to work and you're like hungover and like feeling like death.
And what
And
age are you reckoning you're at this
I
point?
was late 20s, mate,
Yeah.
early
Yeah.
30s, and my son George had been born, and me and his mum separated when he was 2. And so
Hmm.
I really started hitting it then. And when we separated, I slept in the van as well. Like I used to get in the side of the van and pull the underlay over me. And I remember waking up in the morning, busting for a wee, but hearing people walking past the van. I was
Ah,
like, oh my God, I've got to crawl out the side of the van, air all over the place. And then a bloke in the pub said, Dave, you're an alcoholic because you're always pissed. And it really upset me,
yeah.
and I was so for surfing. And I eventually found somewhere to live in that. And what happened there, Jimmy, was I started buying takeouts from the offie. So I
Mm-hmm.
was moderating in the pub so I didn't look like an alkie,
Mm-hmm.
and I was buying cans from the offie, but they were diamond white. And back then they were like 8.4%, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was buy four, get four free. So I was having 2 or 3 beers in the pub. Oh, look, I'm all right. I'm going to go home and do some paperwork and watch the bloody telly. But I wasn't. I was getting stuck into 8 cans of Diamond White.
Yeah.
Um, and then it went on from there. And that the Diamond White went to wine. Wine made me put on loads of weight. And then I Googled what alcohol's the least calories, up pop vodka. And I was never a spirit drinker. And
Yeah.
I bought half a bottle of vodka. I downed it in about literally 15 minutes because I was called glug, so I drank
Yeah. Yeah.
quickly. And that went to a bottle to a litre. And then I lived on my own for kind of 10 years, drinking indoors and hardly ever going out. And
Mm. But were you
I've
still
become,
going to the pub, like just for these
uh,
couple of warm? No, you'd stop
no,
that as
no,
well.
no,
Yeah.
because I'd moved by then to a place which is 2 or 3 miles away.
Yeah.
And the pub there, I didn't like it. It's like one of them big old carvery pubs.
Mm.
And I found me getting drunk indoors was a lot easier than me going out.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So because I wasn't being judged or watched, and even next door they were quite a young couple, and they said we got a party Saturday. Why don't you come along and meet some people and that? And I said no, I'm out. And I sat in the dark all night on a Saturday night, drinking vodka, you know, with my phone torch, just so I wasn't pouring it on the carpet.
Yeah.
And I could hear laughter and music, and I was like, "What the hell am I doing?"
But
But
you didn't want them because you said you were out. You didn't want them to know you were in, so you're sat there like almost
in the
like a
dark,
prisoner in
mate.
your own home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I didn't want them to know I was in. So I couldn't
Yeah.
even have the lights on because they would have come and got me. So my choice of I can get absolutely paralytic indoors on vodka, and I couldn't even have any music on or anything, right? And to
Yeah.
just sit there in the dark getting drunk. And
Yeah.
I thought, God, I've really hit an incredible low in my drinking now. But also there was a part of it that I loved as well. It's a weird thing to describe,
Mm-hmm.
but it was almost like as soon as I shut the door where I lived, that was I used to call it Hotel Belmonte because the village was Belmont
Mm-hmm.
near
Mm-hmm.
Sutton, right? Hotel Belmonte, but it actually became Prison Belmonte
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I imprisoned myself in. I wouldn't answer the phone. I'd text,
Yeah.
but if anyone rang up, I wouldn't answer it because I was drunk.
Yeah.
So I say, you've been texting for an hour and I've just called you and you're not picking the phone up,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
I guess it's like you've got this, like you said, you actually liked it in a way because you felt safe. Do you know what I mean? You had the world, that was it. It was shut out. You were
Yeah.
happy in your own little place and you were kind of, do you know what I mean? Cocooning yourself in this little environment that was just your, for want of a better word, happy place.
I used to have this vision of this like a spaceship, right?
Yeah.
And you get in and a bit of Pink Floyd playing,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And then the more you drank, the more the door of the spaceship would shut. And then you reach a point that you go clunk, right? And you was
Yeah.
in your cocoon there. And that's how it was for me every night getting drunk indoors because no one could touch me. No one could tell me what to do, to judge
Mm,
me, to say, mate, you need to sort it out. And I went on for 10 years like that. You know, often
mm,
nightly liter of vodka. And if I get up in the morning and there was a small bit left, I thought I'd had an easy night. And I was like,
mm.
I had a skip in my step. Do you know what I mean? It was
Because you
like,
thought I didn't finish it. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't finish it, but it was well over a bottle of vodka,
Yeah.
So my levels of drinking just got worse and worse and worse. But at the weekend, it was even worse because I was never a day drinker, but I would start drinking at half 11, 12 because the football started, because the
Hmm.
pubs were open. So I justified it. And I would come out Monday morning you know, after a whole weekend on the session indoors, and I literally don't know how I did it now. Like I don't.
And
Um,
did your hangovers, because I mean, I think we're talking like your kind of 30s at this point. Did your hangovers start getting worse towards the end of your 30s? I know
oh, well,
mine did, but
this was way into my 40s now.
right, right.
My 30s were more in the pub.
Yeah, yeah,
And then I moved when I was 40 to this place.
right.
And then I had 10 years of
Isolation.
solitary drinking. And I used to say I don't get a hangover because I just think I was topping up all the time.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and people used to say, "Oh, you look shattered, Dave,"
yeah,
because I probably was. Like, you don't sleep when you're drinking. You're all over the shop,
yeah.
right? And I wasn't eating properly, and I wasn't exercising. I was barely functioning until my next drink. You know, and then I landed the job on the 60-minute makeover show,
Hmm.
and that would horrified me, Jimmy, because I thought this is the opposite of what I'm doing now because I'm quite solitary,
Yeah, yeah.
and now
So you were sorry, but you were working with, but just your own business. So you were going and doing your carpets, maybe have a crewmate or whatever with you, but then you'd go home and you're doing that. But now your whole day is with like people acting up and happy
yeah,
and TV
yeah,
personalities and
yeah.
that. And you've got to be on form all the time. So
Yeah, well,
it's
I had to
yeah,
go to Coventry on the first one, and it was a week in Coventry, right? And I didn't know anyone walking in on the set, and it's quite clicky.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, but what I did know was that there was a lot of drinking going on. So after an hour or so, I got in with the lads and that, and we stayed up until 2:30 in the morning drinking in the
Mm,
hotel, right? And then my first day on 6 Minute Makeover, I was completely hanging, but everyone else was the cameraman and whatnot, you know. And I thought, oh my god, this is great. And we went clubbing that week, and
yeah.
you know,
When
it was
was
a
I mean, I used to watch it every now and then, but it was on through the noughties, wasn't it? It wasn't the 90s at all. It was more the noughties, wasn't it? When
well, I
was
joined,
it?
yeah. So I joined in about 2008, I think,
Yeah.
until 2006, 14. So it might have
Right.
been before 2000. So I did 6, 7 years on it.
Yeah.
And then Peter Andre joined, and they were saying, "Oh, this is going to go mainstream BBC One, 8 o'clock on a Friday night," and there was a lot of buzz around it.
Uh-huh.
Meantime, we were going out every night, and really, like, I remember one night it was Christmas special.
Hmm.
We're recording it in August, and it was about 90 degrees outside, right? And we were doing this nursing home,
Hmm.
and they had the heating on because everyone was like old in there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. The old
But
cold,
they're
yeah.
taking them all out for the day, and there were about 100 people doing the makeover because it's this enormous room, right?
Yeah.
And I had to stick the carpet down with glue, and everyone was treading in the glue, and it was like carnage. And we had Christmas dinner, but the night before that, it was our Christmas Eve, right? Even though it was August, and we
Yeah,
were
yeah, yeah, yeah.
playing the piano in the hotel, 3 o'clock in the morning, singing Christmas songs. Absolutely
Carnage.
bladdered. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
we had to get up at 5:30, right, and start you did the recce when you got in there, and they said, right, what we have to do and that, and
Yeah.
the cameras were on. It's like, oh my god. Like, I was still drunk about 11 in the morning.
Yeah.
And that happened, and then time went on, and I got into my 50s, and I just started, like, I just every day was a nightmare in the end. And
Mm.
I started saying to myself, I've got to sort this out, because I knew where it was going, Jimmy. I knew that I was going to die because I was 21 stone. I
Right.
ballooned in weight, and my blood pressure was shocking. Like the doctor said, you could have a stroke any moment. My
And did they
cholesterol was.
I don't I can't remember what you said before, but did they ask you like when I've been on previous, did they ask you how much are you drinking at the point when you went to the doctors? I remember that you said they put you on antidepressants and things like
Yeah,
that.
well,
But
yeah. So at that time, I said I like a drink and that. So they put me on Ramapril
yeah.
um, for the blood pressure. But
Hmm.
then, I was in a marriage then that, wasn't working out and that. And
Yeah.
I was on antidepressants, and it, I was just, everything felt numb,
Hmm.
And, you know, I just knew things had to change. But I didn't really equate it to you really need to stop drinking and then things have changed. It was like I was looking at other things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe I need to go to the gym more. Maybe I need to lose a bit of weight. Maybe I need to go to bloody marriage guidance or couples counseling or whatever. I was never looking at the drink.
Yeah.
And um,
Because it's
I,
our friend. It's like the only, if you want to call it a disease, it's the only disease that's killing us, but the only thing that we think what's actually killing us is what's actually making us feel better. Do you know what I mean? So it's like our best friend. So it's the last thing, even if we know that it's, if someone's told us this is killing you, it's the last thing we want to give up. We want to try everything else before we give that up, you know?
well, you know, like when you think about it, a lot of us, we start when we're 14, 15 years old.
Mm,
And it's been in our entire adult life, right?
yeah.
So it's like that sidekick, like a double act, like Ant and Dec and that, and it's like Dave and vodka, Jimmy
Yeah.
and wine or whatever he was drinking, you know, like,
Okay,
and
yeah.
it's like, you know, like in the sober community, we say, oh, it's not a loss, it's a gain, and whatever. Well, it is, but there's also the fact you need to become, you know, be honest with yourself and go, it is a loss, right? Because I've been in this relationship for 40 years with something that hasn't always been a nightmare. You know, I've
Hmm.
had some right cracks with some friends, some great holidays, you know, but it's got out of control. But what it's doing now, it's actually helping me forget all the shit from the past and kind of getting me through each day. So, that's the hamster wheel of doom, isn't it? Where
Yeah.
you're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and things are 10 times worse.
Hmm.
And then you go for the hell in the morning. But by lunchtime, you think, God, I could finish work at 4 and start drinking again. And it pushes you through the afternoon. And then you're back in that spiral.
Hmm.
And I tried a few times to stop, but they were like half-assed chances, you know, bit of dry Jan, but I didn't have a plan for it, you know, good day counting. And
Hmm.
then uh, August, no, sorry, not August, 2018, I put down as one of the worst years of my life. You know,
Hmm.
my marriage was really bad, on the rocks, and um, my mum was ill. She was found on the path outside her flat. You know,
Oh,
she ended up in hospital. I had 25 grand taken off me from a builder. He did a runner. And in the end, I had a bit of a breakdown. And
yeah.
I ended up down in Eastbourne. And people say, why Eastbourne? But I lived near Clapham Junction. And I just got on a train and I headed
Hmm.
down the coast. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Like end of the
And
line type thing. Yeah.
yeah, and it was like the sea, the sea was sunny and I didn't have anywhere to stay, but that made it exciting because I was drinking from like 9:30 in the morning on the pier,
Hmm.
right? The Horatios, whatever it is on the pier,
Yeah.
was open, right? And then the Witherspoons opened up. And then because it was warm, I sat outside and this bloke started chatting to me. And then his mate come along. So I made a load of fake mates and I drank all day, like literally probably 17, 18 pints until it got dark and cold. And I had this thin jacket because
Hmm.
when I left, I just picked anything up. I didn't like think, oh well, it's going to be damn chilly tonight if I go to Eastbourne on the train.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I went in the co-op and I bought a bottle of vodka and I thought, you know what? I'm going to go and sit on the beach and look at the sea and watch the stars and whatnot.
Mm.
And I literally drank the vodka after 17 pints or 18 pints of Stella. And I remember waking up and I'd weed myself and also I'd hit my head where I probably got up to stand up and just falling over and clump my head on the
Jesus.
pebbles and that.
Yeah.
And I did 4 or 5 days of that, no phone because it'd gone flat. And but what you said earlier about the antidepressants was before that, I'd
Hmm.
gone to the doctors and said, look, they're not working. And he said, all right, we'll up your dose. So he went from 50 to 100 milligrams sertraline, right? And he didn't even ask me about my drinking, right? And I was in there for about 2 minutes, right, when he doubled my dose. And I think that with my psychotic breakdown that I had, plus the amount
Yeah.
of alcohol, I went mad. I think I
Yeah.
literally went mad.
You had an episode, yeah. And that's,
Yeah,
I mean, what did you say? 4 or 5 days of just doing that on the beach.
yeah,
And
yeah. Literally, it was like an absolute bender. And I think on the fourth or fifth day,
mhm,
I didn't even want to go to the pub. And I remember going to the beach, and everyone was on the beach with families and that. And I had 8 pint cans of Stella, and I looked like a home. I did look homeless because I
yeah,
hadn't showered. I still had dry blood on my head, and I couldn't even go to the pub because I couldn't face it anymore. I just wanted to be on my own. And I
yeah,
remember laying on the beach, probably 1 o'clock in the afternoon, with 8 cans of Stella. Now, if I saw that now, I'd think, poor bloke, what's going on?
yeah,
But I
yeah.
was
You'd want to
getting
go and help them.
looks from the families and the kids. I didn't care. And
Yeah,
in the end, I had to get home and that. And I went to the doctors because I just didn't know what I was doing. And I was in there for, I think, 48 minutes. And when I come out, the surgery was queuing out the door because I think she realized there'd been a massive cock up
yeah.
with the double the dosing, And yeah, after that, my mum died. And I
Mm,
was with
yeah,
my mum as well, So it was that hell year.
yeah, yeah,
And you would think that would be enough for me to say, do you know what, I'm done, but it wasn't. And it was January the year 2019 that I would say, Jimmy, a miracle happened to me, and
yeah.
I'm forever grateful to the guy, although I was absolutely ready for it. But the guy who texted me, Piers, on the 7th of Jan,
Mm-hmm.
another hangover. I think it was a Monday. I don't know. I could check, and a text come through from Piers, and it said, "How do you feel like joining me for 3 months to stop drinking?" Now he'd obviously seen what was going on, and
Yeah.
if he'd have said to me, "Mate, you look shocking. You need to stop drinking now," I would have told him what to do and
Yeah,
drank more.
you'd have taken umbrage to that and gone, piss off,
Yeah,
mate.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine.
But that was the turning point, mate. And I thought about it all day because at first I thought I can't even give up 3 days, let alone. But what I've been doing, Jimmy, I've been planting a seed for months and months and months.
Yeah.
So although it looked like spontaneous sobriety for me, where it's like I just gave up on that day, it wasn't because I was talking to myself like a lunatic,
Mm-hmm.
like literally walking around. What are you doing, Dave? You really need to sort this out. You can't go on like this. And I think I just drip fed the seed into my head over the few months. And that was like the door of the universe, just like, right, this is it. This is the moment. Like, click,
Yeah.
send him the text. And by that evening, I said, "Are you in?" And he's never in, never. Like,
Mm.
he's always doing something for the church or for whatever with the kids and that. And he said, "Come and see me." And when I walked in, he was just standing there. And I said, "Yeah, let's do it."
Mm.
And that was it, mate. Literally, that was it. Um,
And are
and
you
I tried.
still in, is he still a good mate? Are you still in touch with peers? And
Well, he moved. So he moved to Jersey, and
yeah,
I've obviously moved.
yeah, you're
Marriage
up in
ended
them.
and whatnot, and
Yeah.
I moved. I literally moved about 7 times, and now I'm in the Midlands. And every year on my anniversary, I send him a text and say,
Mm.
"Thank you so much, mate." And I tried to call him, but he's a busy man. He works in the markets and that.
But him being in that time, and like I think you've said in the past, he wasn't a big drinker. He wasn't giving up for
Nah.
his health or anything. He was doing it for you, and him being in that day when you came round. Because if he hadn't been in, you might have just gone to well, not the pub.
Oh
But
yeah, I would have done, but
yeah,
now I know now he made sure he was in, right?
yeah,
So he's a kind of guy that would meet you and he'd tell you something about your past that you've got no idea how he knew it. He's an incredible man. He sees things. 6 months before that, he
yeah,
said, "Do you know what? I've got a feeling something incredible is going to happen for you in the next few years. Like I really feel it, you know."
yeah.
Um, so yeah, that happened, and you know, I genuinely haven't looked back,
Hmm.
and it's changed. I mean, when I gave up in 2019, the community was different. It was
Yeah,
different.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and I tried AA, and I love churches, and the people were nice, but it just didn't work for me.
Hmm.
And I went to an event in East London, and I met the Rock Sober Boys and William Porter, Janie Lee Grace, Claire Pooley, and that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I remember coming away from there on the train at about 10:30, 11 at night, sober, thinking, Jesus, this is living. Like I've had some really decent conversations, right?
Hmm.
And that was in about the March. And in the September, I held my own event,
Right.
and 90 people came to it. And my account was growing, right? Because I think I was different from everyone else. I was a Croydon boy, what you see
Yeah.
is what you get, and a bloke as well. And I
Yeah.
was talking about my feelings, I was talking about, how it felt to feel your feelings, and which was rare for a bloke
Hmm.
to talk about, especially a rough and ready bloke.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my account started growing, and my first event, there was about 90 people in Dalston. And then I think it was just early in the year after, I just thought, you know what, I'm going to do a podcast. And my first episode went to number 2 in the Apple charts, literally number 2.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a guy married to a TV personality, and she pushed it out. And
Yeah.
from there, it just grew and grew and grew. And
Yeah.
then I used to say, oh, I could write a book about it one day. That was a bit of a catchphrase. And like the catchphrase of the podcast, one for the road.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was always like, let's have one for the road. Let's have 10 for the road, more like.
One for the ditch, but one for the
Yeah,
road, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, one for the ditch.
So I started writing the book and that, and someone helped me with it. And then that became an Amazon bestseller like
Yeah.
within 3 days. And it went from there. But then I started to change a bit of direction there, Jimmy, because I found like I was talking about it constantly. And I think a lot of us do in the beginning, don't we? Where we're so
Yeah.
enthusiastic and that. So I trained to be a grey area drinking coach, and then I trained to be a trauma informed coach, because I realised, as you know, that a lot of our drinking stems back from our childhoods, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
started looking at that side of it, and I become qualified. I learned about internal family systems and attachment styles, and that gave me more knowledge, which I love,
Hmm.
because I've messed school up badly. And that's just led on to other things, mate. It's been an incredible ride. It really has. And I'll go back to Eastbourne. I've just come back. Literally this weekend I went there. Every Easter I go, and obviously it's early now, but
Yeah,
Easter's
but
in a couple of
at
weeks.
least you
But
it's all right to go back to like the scene of the crime, as it were. Do you know what I mean? And be okay with that, because
well,
that's
I
what.
go back every year, and I sit on the bit of the beach that I obviously cut my head open and that. And I
Yeah.
go to the pub that I have a meal in there, in the pub.
Yeah.
And I go to a like a disused yoga center that I tried to break into and nearly broke my neck trying to do it. But you know what it does, mate? I often, like, I went on my own, and I met a mate who lives near there for one day, but
Yeah.
I sit there for ages and I just look out the sea, and I'm just so grateful that I've managed to turn my life around.
Mm.
And it really helps me. And for some people, they wouldn't want to go back to the scene of the crime. But for me, it really helps me. And every year I go back, I'm like, oh my God, how much have I done this year? It's incredible,
Mm.
Like, and I'd still be a carpet fitter if I was alive. And there's
Hmm.
nothing wrong with that. I'm knocking on a bit now. And, the job does get harder. And I don't know what I'd be doing, and I'm genuinely so happy now, and I'm so content in myself. Um, and my nervous system is calm. That's
Yeah.
the best way I can describe it. Is that I rarely feel anxious. Even little things, Jimmy, like saving for my tax bill. It
Hmm.
sounds silly to some people because they say, well, "Of course you've got to save for your tax bill." I never used to. I used to spend all my money on booze, trainers, weekends away, and sod it.
And
I'll
then
deal with it.
be like paying it back, paying it back, rather
Yeah,
than just get it and then boom, it's done.
yeah,
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 I know what you
yeah.
mean.
And so I'm organised. I've kind of grown up, Jimmy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I was talking to Gary Mayers, who was on yours the other week, but we were saying, like, starting drinking at 14. Your brain doesn't fully develop till you're about 25. And if you're using alcohol as a crutch up until, I think he was 33, I was 40, you were what,
54.
54.
Yeah,
We've almost like put our own maturity or our immaturity in like a cryostasis, and then
Yeah,
it's let out again when we're sober. And
yeah,
it's, you know, as I say, I got sober when I was 40, and I'm just starting to grow up now, you know, doing the
mm,
responsible things and living life how we're meant to do it. But
yeah,
there's just so many people out there that are, you know, they might not be as bad as us, but they're gray area drinkers, and they're just
yeah,
not, you know, when people
yeah.
say they're standing on top of a I don't know, like a wall at a beach or whatever, and drinking their beers and they go, "I'm living my best life." No, you're not. You're really not. This is living your best life. Do you know what I
But
mean?
the thing is, Jimmy, until they see it,
Yeah.
we got to remember where we were, where I was in Eastbourne that time, thinking, yeah, I've met a load of blokes and the sun's on my face and I've got no response. My phone's gone flat and sod out everything. If
Yeah.
someone would have come up to me then and gone, take 3 months off, mate, I'd have just told them to piss off, right?
Yeah.
So, and with the grey area drinkers or the binge drinkers or the every now and again drink, I never compare because, like, I was a litre of vodka a day drinker,
Hmm.
but some people are drinking a bottle of wine a day and feeling as bad as I was, or had the same amount of anxiety, or weren't parenting how they wanted to parent.
Hmm.
So I always say it's all relative to the person, and it's I'm 61 this year, right? And so I'm already thinking, not in a negative way. I'm thinking, right, I'm in a new decade now.
Hmm.
How do I want to be when I start the next one? Because 70 is knocking on, isn't it? It's really
Yeah.
knocking on. But I want to be the healthiest, fittest, mentally sharp person I can be for
Yeah.
when I get there, right? So that means today, how I live today, and not, oh, well, do you know what? I can eat a few pies and whatnot and deal with it at a time. I
Yeah.
really try and maintain my mental well-being, my food choices, my exercise choices,
Yeah. Because you're
my
caffeine free, aren't you?
relationships. Like I choose the right relationships, and
Yeah.
and I get out of old relationships that are not serving me anymore, and I have done, and that includes family.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's been tough, but they wasn't working for me anymore, and I've had really to put in serious boundaries around things that don't work for me anymore.
Yeah.
And so all the people in my life make me feel special, make me feel good, and hopefully I do the same for them.
Mm.
So I've changed the goalpost there as well. Well, before it's like I knew, I've got loads of mates, but they weren't mates; they were beer buddies. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Hangers
And
on in the pub and doing that. And um, you know, I know it's from a lot of your podcasts. George, your son, was always like the mainstay through your, you know, I think you said you'd never really drink when he was a child in front of him, but then
yeah,
he became your booze buddy for a
yeah,
bit. And then, but I think he's always been kind of your rock, isn't he? You
yeah,
know,
he's
throughout
he's
everything.
great. It's great, and he's 31 now, and he's been offered a job out in LA, and
Oh, right.
he's really into his fitness now, and he rarely ever drinks. I'm so lucky he hasn't got my gene
Yeah.
there, and he's into his fitness and his nutrition. And I think a lot of people that age are now, when they grow up in their
Yeah.
20s, they don't look at it as boozing like we used to look at it, and I think there's a change there. But he's amazing, he's such a lovely bloke now, and I'm lucky
Mm.
that I've protected him as much as I could when I was drinking,
Yeah.
um, because I wouldn't really drink around him, you
Mm.
know, um,
Which is almost
until
like in your own head, even though you were, you know, for one of, well, you know, problem drinker, you were still not wanting to pass those behaviors on to him. And it's, you know,
yeah,
it's
and
almost like
he
subconsciously.
used to stay at the weekends and that, and I wanted to be there, so it was agony a lot of the time, right?
Yeah.
Because I was obviously addicted to the bloody stuff, but
Yeah.
I was also his football manager, and like turning up on a Sunday morning when people know that he's stayed the night at my house and at 8 years old, I've turning up with a stinking hangover. And what did you do last night? Oh, well, we went to Blockbusters and we watched a film. Mate, you stink of booze. So I had a bit, I was not weirdly, but I was really responsible, even though I was a bloody addict to the stuff.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? But I did prioritize that, and I feel proud about that
yeah,
because, you know, I'm doing a big walk for the COA next month for children of alcoholics and that. And
yeah,
some of the
absolutely.
stories I hear are terrible, you know, like of what they've been through as a child with their parents drinking, and that is awful. So at
And that's the
least,
thing, like what you were saying there, I can see it as well. I'm a stepfather to a 14-year-old, 12-year-old, and 8-year-old. And although they're not quite at the age, I mean, the older one is kind of getting to 14 when I drank, but there is a definite shift in the younger generation. They really are, they're educated more because they got everything at the palm of their hands to go
yeah,
and if someone says, "Oh, drinking's bad for you," they'll Google that, and if they
yeah,
see, 7 types of cancers, they're not gonna start putting that in their body. So
yeah,
it's that whole thing where even though, as you say with Nicoa, there's obviously children that are dealing with seeing their parents like that, which you'd hopefully think would turn them off of it. But otherwise, sometimes they see the behaviors and they think, well, not if you can't beat them, join them. It's their own way of numbing out what they're seeing as
yeah,
well. So I think
yeah. It
it's
is.
fantastic what Nicoa is doing. You
Yeah,
know.
they were amazing, you know, and they had all their funding cut by the government.
Mm,
I can't remember when, it was a while ago now, but it was awful. They literally had it all cut, you know, and it's like, why?
Jesus.
You know,
Yeah.
so when I'm doing this walk with Victoria, my girlfriend, and
Yeah.
48 other people, and it's up in the Peak District, and
And it's a
it's
marathon,
20,
isn't it? So it's
but
26.2
no,
miles.
it's
Or is it more?
23 miles, but
23
it's a
miles.
walk.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
But
it'd be all day. But I've done it for about 3 years now, and it's the most beautiful part of the world. It's stunning up there, you know. And you
hmm
start about 7:30 in the morning, and you have some incredible conversations, and you know, stop and have a cup of tea and a bit of lunch and that, and it's great. It's fantastic.
hmm
Um, yeah, so that's next month. So I'm looking forward to that. And
And have you been
no,
training much for it, or you just? I mean, you're fit enough as it is, Dave, aren't you?
yeah,
You
I
do
mean, I went
walks
down
and
to
stuff.
Eastbourne and did the Seven Sister. I walked about 60 mile at the weekend.
Oh, nice.
But I love walking. Like if you told
Yeah,
me to run, I'm like Mr. Bean running for a bus. Like I'm terrible. I'm just not built for running. But I can walk for miles, you know, and
yeah.
I never had the headphones in. I like to listen to the wind and the birds and you know the environment. It's
I'm the same. I used to run and I haven't run for years, but I've started again because I signed myself up to the Great North Run. I've done it
well
a
done.
couple of times before and I've started my training, but I need to step it up a bit. But I'm like you, I'm just like I prefer to just walk at my own leisurely
Yeah,
pace and listen to the birds and all that and nature. But it's got to be done, and I'm doing it for Motivate over here, which is our addiction charity that
oh, well
is
done,
is
mate. That's
fantastic.
amazing.
So
And
yeah,
when is
it's
that?
just so the Great North Run is I think it's late September, mid to late September,
Oh, you got
up
a
in
bit of time.
Newcastle. Got
Yeah,
plenty of time, but I've got 3 runs coming up at the end of this month. In fact, next weekend, not this weekend, the weekend after. So it's like a
yeah,
10K, a 5K, and then a 4 mile hill run. I'm ready, but I'm not fully ready, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, Dave, if you could go back to like when you were, let's say, your 14-year-old self, do you know what I mean? And if you had the two paths, one that you're on now, and you can go that way and be the person you are now, or you could say to yourself, Dave, don't drink. You can go and have this life here. What path would you take, mate?
Great question, Jimmy.
Thanks, man.
I don't think I would change anything.
Yeah.
I really don't, right? Because I now meet so many incredible people and hopefully help some people as well with the work I do.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, that I don't, I think I was meant to live this life
Yeah.
to be able to do this. And I mean that as well. You know, we all make mistakes in life and whatnot. But even when my mum died, I was with her, holding her hand and that. And I said to her, Mum, you've been the best mum I could have ever hoped for, right? Because even though it wasn't right at the time that she left and she wrote a letter and didn't say goodbye, and I didn't see her for 18 months, and you
hmm
know, there was no internet or mobiles then or anything. It was a
hmm
landline, in it. And every time the phone rang, I was like, "Is that mum?" And it wasn't. And you know,
Yeah.
and there's this new woman in my life, and who
But
didn't really take to
your mum
me.
was young as well. Do you know what I
Well,
mean?
she was.
Like,
It was her
yeah,
birth. She was 79 the day after she died, and I knew she was going to go, and I gave her a birthday card. And
yeah,
the day she died, and she couldn't talk either anymore because she'd lost her voice and that. And I just said, "You're the best mum that I could ever wish for," because it taught me resilience, Jimmy. You
yeah,
know, it taught me
yeah.
to stand up on my own 2 feet. You know, I used to sew my trousers up. I don't know if you remember Wonder Web, but you,
Underwear.
yeah, it was in the white reel, and you could turn your trousers up and iron it, and it would
Oh
stick.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Remember that?
yeah,
So I would get that from Woolworths, and I would turn my trousers up, and at 14 years old, because my dad didn't know how to do it, you know, and but stand up on my own 2 feet and make my own decisions. And I was working. I think I
yeah.
just turned 15, and I was going to work at weekends, like 12-hour days, and you know, and
You just had to grow
I,
up quickly. Yeah,
yeah, and I
yeah,
learned a lot from it. And you know, I kind of let it all go, and I told her I loved her as well. And it, you know, although it was quite um wasn't the best experience because she died with her eyes open and her mouth open, and she didn't have any teeth and that, and it wasn't, but there were other sides of it that I told her I loved her, and that was probably what the last thing she heard. Do you know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I made peace with all of the past with her as well. And
Mhm.
I feel it with with me nearly every day now, and I mean that as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
And you know, and this is what I'm all about now, is like living a simple life, living a life without drama as
Mhm.
much as I can, you know, and
Yeah.
living in a peaceful way and showing kindness. And I've really changed, mate, because I used to have a bad temper and like irritable and negative attitude and that. And I'm not saying I was sitting on a mountainside in an orange robe. Do you know what I mean? But
No, I know what you
I
mean.
feel really like my life's really peaceful now. And
Yeah.
I
Um,
think it shows. People have said, "Oh God, you're so calming to be around," you know, when they spend time with me and that. And it's like, because I am.
yeah, you're content and that shows. Do you know what I mean? You've sorted out all the things in your life that were bringing you negative, that were
Yeah,
impacting negatively on you, including the booze. And once you got that out, it was like, right,
yeah,
pick and change and all that. And I don't think there's a single guest that I've had on that has said they would go back and go the other direction. I'm exactly the same. When I was on your podcast, I kind of misspoke and I called Jen my current girlfriend, and then I quickly changed it round. But she's now my fiance. Do you know what I mean? And this
oh,
wouldn't have
well
been
done.
happening without me getting sober,
Yeah,
and all those little things in your life that kind of once you get sober, everything else starts falling into place.
yeah.
You
It
have
all
to
starts to
tweak it.
align, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, you
we have to
attract
tweak
different
it.
people, don't you? I mean, Victoria. I've been
Yeah.
with her for a while now, and it's like she's so amazing and such a wonderful human being, and she brings out the best in me as well. And like what you said about George and that, and the people around me is just like it's so different from what life was like before. It was quite toxic with
Hmm.
the relationships of when I was drinking was so different. And the door opens, and it's almost like if you get an opportunity when that door opens, you've got to go through it. It's a bit like that sliding doors film, isn't it? I don't know if you've seen that, but
I was talking about that to my friend. Sorry, but that's the phone. I should have put it on silent. My friend was over last weekend, and we were discussing sliding doors because that's what we're talking about in recovery and things. He's
yeah,
in recovery as well, and it's
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
That when Piers texts me, I probably had about 12 hours, because if I'd have not seen him that night,
yeah,
then I would have no doubt drank because the England game was on, and I would have definitely had a few beers that night, right?
yeah.
And it's like, for anyone listening and they're on the fence of what to do, please take the leap,
Yeah.
give yourself a month off, but instead of day counting, do the work around it. Listen to these podcasts and listen to audio books and research the science and find a group,
Hmm.
like to connect with like-minded people and embrace it rather than drag your ass around going, oh, I've got 27 more days to go. This is miserable. It's like, be excited about it. Like, well, how am I going to feel after 30 days? What am I going to look like? What's my relationship with my kids going to be like? You
Hmm.
know, am I going to lose a bit of weight? That doesn't always happen because the old sugar monster. But, you
Yeah.
know, but like really take it on and then think, right, can I do another week? Can I do another 2 weeks and go from there? And before you know it, you've done 3 months and
Yeah.
you start noticing the difference then, don't you? And it's life changes.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's like, as you say, don't do the day counting, because if you're doing that, you're almost just white knuckling it because you're like, right, it's day 12, got to get through this. Do you know what I mean? But if you're saying,
Yeah.
read the quit lit, listen to podcasts,
Mm,
YouTubes, all of that stuff, and just not even that, just go and comment on people's sober Insta, because
mm.
people will comment back and you'll create connections. As you say,
Yeah.
it's like, what is it? Alcoholism, or for want of a better word, is it's a disease of disconnection. We all, most of us, I did, you did, we ended up being insular and
Mm.
isolated from everyone else, apart from our little friend alcohol, and it's not a good place to be.
No, well, it wants you on your own, doesn't it? It wants
Yeah,
to feel you. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that animation Nuggets, but that just sums it up to a T where
you showed it
it's,
to me, so yeah,
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 the further down the road it went, the darker it got until it just fell over in the pitch black, and that was it, you
yeah.
know. And that's how I look at addiction, and
It
there's so
doesn't.
much help out there now. There's so much support, and in the old days it was just AA, but there's so many different things available now for you to try and
And
give
as
it a go.
as you say, most people are kind of online now, especially the younger lot. And to go and sit in a room kind of feels a bit draconian for them. But there's so much online, and that's the thing. If there are young people, and I've spoken to a number of people in their 20s and early 30s that are struggling but are getting help because they know they need to. And it's so
Yeah,
refreshing to see people at that young age getting sober.
yeah.
Um, do you think that alcohol still has a place in our society today, Dave?
Well, it will do for a long time because
Yeah.
nothing's been done about it. I mean, like there's adverts on the telly at the moment about cigarettes saying out of 3 people that smoke are going to die, right?
Hmm.
Why is that not being spoken about alcohol here? As you said earlier about 7 types of cancer.
Yeah.
I saw a documentary the other night. It's called Surgeons on the Edge of Life. It's the most fascinating series. Like every week they're doing, like this woman had a tumor in her neck, and you think they'd just go in and cut it out, but it's like a complete A to Z of nerves, and they
Ah,
had to
yeah.
move out the way. And that if they nicked this nerve, it means she would never smile again. If
Oh,
they nick this nerve, it means that her eye would twitch for the rest. It's an incredible program. But this woman had breast reconstruction because she had breast cancer, right?
uh-huh.
And I thought at the end of it, no one said, I'd really look at your relationship with alcohol because the chance of reoccurrence of breast cancer, if you drink, is 28 to 30%. So where's the
Wow.
data on that, right? Why is that not out there now on big advertising boards with all the rest of it to let us know how dangerous it is, right?
Yeah, that's a shocking figure. I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
yeah, right. And why is the labels that drink responsibly? So here's a deadly addictive drug,
Hmm.
highly addictive drug. It's down to you how much you drink of it because we don't want to own ownership of it, right?
Hmm.
Why is there not labels with these statistics on there and pictures of people with cirrhosis where they're yellow? Why is that not out there? You know why? Because of the
Money.
money. They don't want to talk about it,
No.
right? So I think we've got a long way to go, but I think we need to keep banging the drum.
Yeah.
And I see things gradually changing, like the rugby, like the Guinness 0-0,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's sponsoring all the rugby in that. And, I think it's becoming less of a stigmatized conversation now that if you're not drinking, it's not so bad. Not everywhere. I mean, I've heard some horror stories of what barmen have said or
Yeah.
you know. So it's not everywhere, but in general, no one bats an eyelid now
No.
if you say if you've got an alcohol-free beer or lime and soda or whatever it is. So I think it's becoming more normalised. But
Definitely in the 5 years that I've been sober, 4.5, it's changed so much. Do you know what I mean? The alcohol-free stuff, I don't really use them much anymore, but um it's people don't look at you because you're drinking, a lime and
no,
soda or a Coca-Cola. And I mean, I was kind of thick-skinned. I didn't really care, but I know there was a lot of people that would worry about what people would say if they
yeah,
were going to a bar or a restaurant and not drinking. But people are getting better, and that's in such a short space of time. So can you
yeah.
imagine the next 5 years what attitudes will be like? And it is good. I know what you're saying. It is going to take time, but I can see the warnings coming on packets, bottles soon. And I
Yeah.
think they're starting, was it Germany and maybe Ireland? They're starting to do stuff
Ireland
like
and
that.
Australia, I
Ireland
think,
and
doing it,
Australia.
and I'm just hoping well, the UK will probably be the bloody last, but
They
it's a
will be, yeah.
start, right? So we have to be positive about it, and we have to keep getting the message out there, you know. And I always say it's about being comfortable in your skin when you go out, right?
Yeah,
And it's not being like a scaredy cat and worrying about what people think. It's going up to the bar proud because you should be proud of yourself, right?
yeah.
I don't want to drink that anymore, and people often say to me, "Do you think you'll ever drink again?" I say, "I don't want to drink.
No, it's
Not,
not, it's
not. I
not.
don't know. It's I don't want to."
I mean, I used to see guys at the fellowship and that, and they'd come in and they're like, I don't know, many years longevity, and they're kind of still one day at a time and white knuckling it and all that. And you just think, why? Like I'm not hankering after a drink here. I'm not
No, no.
going to a meeting because I don't want to, because I'm scared I'm going to drink. I just don't drink anymore, and that's
Yeah,
me. That
yeah,
this is defining me now. My recovery, my
yeah,
sobriety, and excuse my Scottishness, but fuck alcohol. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
I'm done with it,
But you
and
know what I mean, Jimmy, about the whole thing where I am now. I'm not even angry about it anymore. I
mm,
used to be really angry and get on my soapbox about it and stuff. But we've all got a choice, right?
mhm.
We've got a choice how to live our life, and I choose to not drink alcohol. And I'm happy with that in my skin, and I don't care what people say. And I'm not saying that in an arrogant way
No,
because
no, no. Yeah.
I get all my Instagram account's got quite a few followers, and I get comments every day that are pathetic,
Do
and I
you?
don't. Yeah, 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 oh yeah.
Ah,
You know, really pathetic comments, and I just ignore it. And
yeah,
if they're rude, like really rude, I block them.
yeah.
But a lot of us said, get on with it because it doesn't affect me. I actually have a bit of compassion and think, well, you're obviously struggling yourself, right? Because you are where I was 8 years ago.
Hmm.
Because it's the kind of thing I would say. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
If
so I
you,
try and look at it with compassion.
yeah, yeah, empathy for them because, yeah, I mean, obviously my account's a lot smaller than yours, and I just see kind of, kind of love, support, not really much toxicity. But I guess when you're exposed to so many people, people are going to come in and
Well, what it
post
is,
some
Jimmy,
toxic stuff.
I had a
But
post go viral, right, and it went absolutely bananas, right, and
yeah,
that's when it goes out. If I look at the stats, it's 99% non-followers that it went to.
right,
So 99% of people don't even know who I am,
yeah.
and that's when I get the abuse because
They're not in
they
recovery or anything like that,
no,
so they
no,
don't
they're just
care.
drinking, right? So in my
Yeah,
community of followers, I get some incredible
yeah,
messages, and, but outside of that, if it goes viral, then it's out in the world somewhere and people are seeing it come up on the explore page and they tap on it and go, look at this twit.
yeah,
Not
yeah,
drinking. Well, how pathetic is that? Because they obviously are drinking and they look at a sober person like I would have done a few years ago. So I think they're no worse than I was, because that's how I used to look at it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's being honest. I'm not proud of it, but I was that
Hmm.
person. Sober people are boring, they're freaks and whatnot.
Absolutely. I was a booze bully. I would say, why are you not drinking? Oh, well, you might as well go home, or do you know what I mean? Something to that effect. It wasn't pure hatred or abuse, but it was booze bullying, definitely.
You
It
know
was,
why,
it was
don't you?
sober shaming. Because I wanted to, yeah, I was not embarrassed about my own drinking, but I felt shame at mine, and I
Yeah,
wanted people to be on the same level as me, because if they were sober and I was doing stupid stuff, which was most
yeah.
times, then I didn't want them to see it and judge me. So yeah, I get
Exactly
it.
that, mate. So it's always a mirror of
Mhm.
their behavior, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I have compassion, because you're just shining a mirror on people
Yeah.
and making them think, And it happened to me once, and I was drunk when he turned up, and he said, "Oh, I'll stop drinking." And I was like, "What? Why the hell are you here then?" Because I like you, Dave, and I want to spend some time with you. But I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to cut down now because I'm already flying, and now I'm going to have to sit because I don't want to get absolutely bollocksed
Yeah.
in front of him because I'm going to really show myself up. So,
And it's funny because those conversations that we have in the pub, which we think are, our best mates and the guys that really get us and they know us deep in our soul, that chat is just absolute BS. It's so surface chat.
yeah,
There's nothing deep or anything. As I was saying, this guy Sam that came over, he was actually one of my counselors when I was in rehab. We kept in touch and we haven't seen each other in 5 years. So when he came over, we literally didn't stop talking for the whole weekend, and it was just getting to know each other on the peer level. And
yeah,
it was like, it was all just deep. And yeah, we were talking about recovery, but we're talking about life. Like if you'd met us, well, he's 12 years sober now. If you'd met us like 15 years ago and we'd met each other and we're in the pub, it would have just been crap. Do you know what I
crap.
mean? There would no deep and
Yeah.
meaningful stuff at
But it
all.
works the other way round as well. That I bet if I met the blokes I used to go down the Newtown, like in
Mm,
the pub, and they were still drinking, probably had nothing to talk about.
yeah,
Because I've changed so much. I really have changed so much. And I'll probably sit there for 10 minutes and think, this is absolutely shite,
yeah.
and go again. So, and before we go, Jimmy, I
Mhm.
really want to like kind of hammer home that you're never too old, right? Because a
Yeah.
lot of people that I know give up in their 40s,
Mhm.
right? But there's a whole load of us in our 50s and 60s that are still struggling, right? And I was 54 when I gave up, and literally everything has changed for me in my life, and I love life now. And
Yeah.
I say that genuinely. There's no sort of wanky influencer talk there of God, it's amazing. It genuinely is. And
I I know exactly what you're saying, Dave, because and I'm not even going to talk about, the Instagram, the podcast, and the book. That's all success and it's great success for you. But just your life and your happiness and your contentment, that just shows. Do you know what I mean? Looking at you from the pictures from, before you got sober to now, it's like it's taken years off you. Do you know what I mean? I know you're
yeah,
getting older. We're all getting older,
yeah,
but
yeah.
you look younger, fitter, and healthier, mate,
I
and that
know. Well,
just
I
shines
am.
through. Yeah.
I mean, even in the last year, I've lost 3.5 stone, right? Because my food choices were going back to how they were when I was drinking, right? And
Mm.
I had to look at that, and I went on this diet, and I lost 3.5 stone, and I climbed two mountains a couple of years ago in
Yeah.
Nepal and Morocco, and I bloody struggled, mate. I really did. I was 18.5 stone, right? And I did Snowdon a month ago, and I was like, my mate said, "You're like a mountain goat." It's because I'm just around 15 stone, or just under 15 stone now. So that's 3.5 stone, right?
Yeah.
Of not lugging that up a mountain.
Yeah.
But that's changed everything because I've got more energy. I don't drink caffeine anymore. I've been caffeine free for 2 years now.
Is that 2 years?
two
Jesus, that's
years,
flown
yeah,
past.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't do that. So I try and live quite cleanly. It doesn't mean to say I don't, have the odd nice meal out and stuff
Yeah,
like
of
that.
course,
But
but
in
not all the time.
general,
Yeah.
yeah, that's it. And it's like you have to eat, and you have to learn to moderate to eat. With drink, you can't, can you? So
Yeah.
I've had to manage that, but I do, and I just feel great, mate. Honestly, and it's 61 in July, and as you say, I look at the pictures of back 10 years ago, and I look ill. I look so ill,
Yeah.
and it's horrible to look at actually, but it's part of my story, isn't it? I suppose, and
I mean, I've only got one photo, I think, because I lost a lot of stuff and I deleted old accounts and Facebook and that. I think I've got one photo of me in my roughest, and it was the day I went into rehab. And I use that quite a lot and put a comparison. And I just look ill. I look lost. The eyes
yeah,
are wrecked,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's just a lost man. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Just before we go, Dave, would you say that you regret getting sober, mate?
I don't know anyone that regrets getting sober. No,
Yeah.
it's been an incredible life-changing thing for me, and you know, I genuinely don't think I would be here if I hadn't have done. I think I was literally living my last few weeks out of how ill I was
Yeah.
back then. And it's almost like the universe gave me an intervention with the name of that young man, Piers, who's an absolute superstar. He saw a way of helping me by
Mhm.
not judging me and not telling me to do it. He suggested we do it together, and that's what made the difference for me because I don't like being told what to do, mate.
No,
Basically,
no, and it was the way that he worded it, and what Pierce did is again, it's the sliding doors, mate. By saving your life, think of the countless people's lives that you've saved. Do you know what I mean? And if that had been taken out of the equation,
yeah,
it's. Do you know what I mean? It's that knock on effect, that kind of
yeah,
crescendo effect, man.
yeah.
What's the name of the mountain that you climbed in Morocco, and how? Because we're off to Morocco in October. Is it near Marrakesh, or is it quite a bit away from it?
Well, it's a way away from there, so it's in the Atlas Mountains, and it's called Mount Tubkal.
Right, right,
And that was
okay.
oh my god, I could do another podcast on that. But then when I come back from there, I
Mm,
said I'm never ever doing anything like that again. And a week later, we booked up in Nepal and we did the Annapurna circuit, which is the equivalent of Everest Base Camp. And
wow.
we were out there for about 2.5 weeks in Nepal, and that
Yeah.
that was an experience and a half, you know. But you know. Uh, it's important for me to say this because this is what I learned from it. I was always trying to compare something to match my drinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we all say, oh, we'll take up running and take up this, take up. I realized that nothing compared to it. And I'm talking individually because to other people it might be different. But for me,
Mm-hmm.
nothing compared to it, right? Because me being in that cocoon with the door shutting
Yeah.
was a one-off experience for me that lasted for bloody years, right? And when I started trying to compare, I let it go, and it
Yeah.
felt so life-changing for me because I was trying to find things to compare or match with that. And
Yeah.
once I realised that there wasn't anything, unless it was something stupid like bloody gambling or ketamine or something, or
Mm.
all that, I just let it go, and it was like I could start grieving it because 40 years, mate, of doing
Yeah.
something, and it got me out of jail many times with my thought process numbing out about stuff, and you know, I let it go, and it was like the biggest moment, like a real light bulb moment. Try to stop comparing
Mm.
anything to the boozing, right? Because you've moved on from that now. You don't have to compare. You just leave it behind. And this is why AA didn't work for me because it was like repeatedly saying you're an alcoholic, you're an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Didn't work for me. I need to leave it in the past. And it is in the past now because it was 6 years ago. And I, as you know, I'd be lying if I said there's not the odd moment that
Mm.
comes up because that's life, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it doesn't. It goes in a minute or so,
Yeah.
and I'll crack on and go. Oh, do you know what? There it is, reminding me that it's still present. It's still coming out of the shadows, and it does me good in a way. It's like I don't take it for granted, and I'm not
Someone
complacent.
someone told me, I think it was one of the counselors in my rehab, and I mean I relapsed when I came out of there, and it was a while before I got sober and stayed sober. But he said to me, he said to me, the past is the past. He said you should only glance back at the past and never stare. But he said always remember how you felt just before you got sober, because you
Yeah,
need to remember that, because with you and I and a lot of others, if we were to go back out tonight, tomorrow, it wouldn't be long before we were back to where we were. And
I
I
know.
know that for a fact with
Yeah,
me. It's still there. It's still in the next room doing its press ups. But
yeah,
as long as it's in the next room, I'm okay.
yeah.
And I
But
can
that's why I go back to Eastbourne because it's a real reminder where I've come from.
yeah,
When I sit on that beach, I can really feel the energy around 2018 for me.
yeah.
And every year I get stronger. I've achieved more, and it just builds strength in me. But I need to be grounded because of the work I do, because I don't want to be one of these people that's like just talks about it
Yeah,
without really feeling someone's pain, because I need to connect with people, right? It's
yeah,
no good doing a podcast after 6, 7 years and you go, yeah. Anyway, and then what? And that, and you're not feeling the story because it just
yeah.
doesn't work, you know. So this would be a lifelong work for me, and for you, I imagine.
Absolutely. I need to keep in the recovery community, obviously doing my peer mentoring because I think if you do step away from it, and that's fine for some people, but for me, if I feel if I'm stepping away from it, I'm not connected to it. I need to be connected to that. I need
Yeah,
to be connected to people that are, you know, even before their first day or their first week, they're still out there. They're gonna be coming back in. They're gonna get a week. They're gonna get 2 weeks, a month. Do you know what I mean? And I need to still be
yeah.
connected to that. It took me a while because I know that some people jump straight into kind of coaching after a month or whatever, which sometimes is a bit soon. But for me, it was like I needed to wait a while and then start doing that. I want to go into doing sober coaching at some point as well, but I'm just taking my time with it. But as long as I keep myself grounded and connected with Instagram, with the podcast, with Motivate, that's my life because
Yeah.
I do. I've said this a few times. I'm happy that recovery kind of defines who I am. It's not the only thing that defines me because I've got so much other stuff going on, but I'm happy that it defines me because alcohol defined me for so many years as well.
Mate,
Um,
I mean, I've had it. I have, haven't I? Because I'm sober Dave, right?
yes,
So
Sober
that's
Dave.
good.
Yeah, that's your name. I
I
bet
can't.
people see you in the street and recognize you and go, "That's Sober Dave." Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, I've even got a number plate that says sober.
Ah,
So
nice, mate. Nice.
yeah, so yeah, I kind of I can't get away from it defining me, but I try. I've tried to move away, like it's not so much the sober coaching, but the trauma side of coaching. You know, because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think once people get sober, there's always the bit after that they need to find out other stuff. You know, who
Hmm.
they are,
Yeah, yeah.
how they think, and
And
you know,
where they're headed, because it's all right
yeah.
getting
So
sober, but you need to know what's coming next.
getting sober is stage one to me. It's like the foundations of the rest of the work, you know. And
Yeah.
a lot of us haven't got a clue who we are when we get sober, are we? Because we've been blotting out for donkey's years, and it's like all of a
Oh,
sudden it's like, Christ, I don't know who I am without it. It defines us, the boozing, doesn't it? You
absolutely.
know?
I had no clue who I was. I was finding out who I'm supposed to be or who I was possibly heading to be before I started
Yeah,
using it as a crutch. I think Robert Downey Jr. said he was on Oprah or something, and he said, "Oh, giving up alcohol and drugs is easy," and everyone's like, "What's going on?" And he said, "Yeah, that's the easy part." He said, "It's the aftermath. It's the work, doing the work, and every day after that's the hard part." He says it
yeah,
gets easier, but that's the hard part.
yeah.
Um,
But
Dave,
it's
I don't want
also
to.
fascinating, mate. It's a
Oh,
fascinating. You know, I don't want to put anyone off, but
no.
learning about yourself and going on that exploratory path in your life. I try to avoid journey then, right? Because everyone knows I don't like the word journey. So I'll come out of all that then. I
I
did
know.
well.
You did,
But
mate. I thought you were going to get the whole way without saying journey. Or,
but yeah,
yeah,
learning who you are, and you know, learning what your attachment style alone is a fascinating thing, right?
yeah,
Learning what your
yeah.
love language is, and learning about internal family systems, what protector parts. I don't want to go too deep, but it's fascinating. Once you start going, it's like Jesus, like
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying this, and you know, it's so fascinating, and it.
Well, the science, they're finding out new scientific discoveries all the time, and it's good to know that they're still putting money into it. Not enough in my, understanding, but they are still putting it into, finding out what the kind of science is behind it,
Yeah.
what drives certain people to drink. My brother, he's like to drink. He's the same makeup as me, but he's never
Mm.
had a major problem with it. We've
Well, look at my
similar
son.
environmental and social
Yeah,
circumstances, but
nature nurture, isn't it? But
yeah, yeah. But it's
yeah, I know
crazy.
we could talk forever,
Yeah, I
anyways.
don't want to keep you all night, mate. I was going to say, have you and Victoria ever been over to the Isle of Man? Because you're more than welcome, mate. My doors are always open if you
Oh,
guys fancy a
lovely.
little trip over.
We do loads of road trips. So at the time of this recording, she's doing a road trip in Ireland.
Oh,
And
nice.
if you look at her Instagram, there's a million pictures on there of island with loads of Irish music going on, and it's like
Yeah,
I said to her tonight, have we got to listen to that when you come back? Yep.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, see, Jen's very much into the Manx music scene, the Manx dancing and all that. So it's very Celtic, Irish folk kind of stuff that we
Yeah,
listen
she
to
would
a lot
love
over here.
that.
It's great. Yeah. So that's what we're going to Morocco for. Morocco have a big yearly, I think it's yearly, but it's like all the different national
Yeah,
folk dances and stuff from all around the world. So it's not just your Celtic stuff, it's just
yeah.
everywhere. So it's going to be fascinating to go and see all of
Yeah,
that from around the
oh
world.
mate, the market in Marrakesh on a Saturday night or something is unbelievable. The
Yeah.
smells and
Oh,
it's a really fascinating because we did the mountain and then we had 2 days in Marrakesh in a hotel to like as a bit of a reward,
yeah, yeah.
and the food and it was so lovely. It's a beautiful
Well, I mean,
place.
I love a tagine and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
so I can't wait.
yeah,
And the teas, obviously,
yeah,
I won't
yeah.
be. Well, I
They
don't
got
know if
us.
there is much alcohol there because it's not a drinking
No,
culture, is it?
no,
So,
no, no. But
yeah,
the way they pour the tea is a speciality as well.
yeah,
They hold the spout really high, don't they? And
yeah,
they do it that way. So I'm sure you'll have a lovely time, mate.
yeah. Thanks, mate. Is there anything else you want to add to the? Oh, what I was going to say was I'll put obviously all your details in the show notes. I mean, it's Sober Dave. Everybody knows Sober Dave. When are you back with One for the Road, mate? Or have you
Well,
not
I've
got a date
taken a
yet?
little break, but my producer, I spoke with her today, and she's got quite a few health issues going on at the moment, and
Oh,
I've just said to her, look, just take your time.
yeah,
She's got to have a lot of scans and tests done and whatnot, and the last thing I want to do is put her under any pressure. So I'm just gonna put a few in the can and
yeah,
just hold on until
yeah.
hopefully things sort out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
We'll send her my best, mate.
yeah,
I
I
know we've
will,
not
and
met, but
you
we
know.
messaged, we sent a few kind of comments when I was on it. So yeah, send her my best, mate. Yeah.
She's lovely. She's
Yeah.
brilliant, and yeah, I don't want to go anywhere else. She's worked with me from day one on the podcast, so it's probably going to be delayed a bit. But I
Yeah.
do know on my guest list I've got some amazing people
Cool,
on the
cool.
guest list. So yeah,
Looking forward
I
to it,
do
mate.
love doing it. And you know, it helps a lot of people like yours does. So it's
Yeah.
important
Well, I mean,
work.
as I say, I'm only fledgling, but it's growing all the time and I love doing it. And it's just, getting such interesting, fascinating people on and hearing their stories. And that is just what helps other people. Anyone
And
you
you
speak to now.
probably,
Well, yeah, of course it does. It's
yeah,
always helping me, and I'm just
yeah.
meeting new people all the time. And, I'm gonna do, I think, 25 in the first kind of run. And I'm moving house at the end of this month, moving in with Jen. So, like, I don't know if you can see it. Gary was saying the other night, he was saying to people that were coming on, he said everyone's saying it's a bit like a pub, your kind of
Yeah,
cottage.
with the beams and that.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
the beams. So we've called it the Dry Arms. So I'll only be
Oh,
doing,
lovely.
yeah. So after this like first run, it'll be down at Jen's in the studio. So the Dry Arms will
Fantastic.
be closed, but the
Well,
pub.
congratulations, mate,
Yeah,
on that
cheers,
one.
mate. I
Yeah,
appreciate
well
that.
done.
Appreciate that. But as I say, I'll not sure what to do with myself when I stop recording, but I'm sure I'll start it up again at some point.
You
Anyway.
will, mate. It's
Yeah, yeah.
addictive. Trust
Oh
me.
yeah, absolutely. Anyway, Dave, thanks very much for your time, mate.
Pleasure.
Really appreciate it. It's been an absolute
Pleasure, mate.
pleasure. And I'll see you soon, pal.
Good man. Thanks a lot, mate.
Cheers, buddy. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Thanks, Sober Dave. Yeah, what I got from that is Dave. He's just he's just a really like gentle, calming, and content voice of recovery and sobriety, and it's just amazing to hear his story, and from someone that got sober at what 54, and it's just an incredibly powerful story, and not just the history of when he was drinking and the things he got up to, like Eastbourne. I mean, that's just absolute carnage. I'm surprised the police weren't called. But I just, if I'd seen him now, I'd just want to go over and hug him and say, "Listen, man, you can get help." But after he got sober, the way Dave has turned his life around, the um, his Instagram account is just massive. You know, he's just forefront and known in the sobriety recovery world. Everybody who's anyone and who's starting out knows or has seen Dave's account. You know, to then go to the podcast, One for the Road, and his subsequent novel, One for the Road, which is a tale of, it's a kind of mixture of memoirs and recovery science advice on that. So it's a great book, a great listen, great read, which you can get on Audible or Amazon. But yeah, just really good to kind of catch up with Dave again. As I say, we've known each other for quite a few years, and yeah, it was just you know, had to get him on the podcast and hear his story. So, you know, if you've not heard any Dave's other podcasts or his own one, you know, check that out in the show notes. But just search for, you know, Sober Dave on any podcast platform, and I think, you know, at last count, there's probably about 10 different episodes. There's definitely more than that, but I think that's about what I've listened to. So thanks again, Dave, for coming on after hours, mate. Really appreciate it, for sharing your story, and I'll see you soon, man. Cheers. Yeah, thanks everyone for listening. I'm hoping, and I think I've listened back, the sound quality is getting much better. I think I need a new mic because Louisa and Dave's vocals definitely sound better than mine, so I might have to hit them up and find out what mic they're using. But other than that, yeah, no little blips and jumps or anything like we had on the previous ones. So thanks for bearing with us, and it's just getting better and better, which, you know, I think the episodes are just growing from strength to strength. Amazing, incredible stories. So if you like what you're listening, hit the follow, subscribe button, give me a 5-star hit button review, leave a comment, leave a review if you want to do that, whichever way, good or bad. You know, I can take it. I'm thick-skinned. And yes, stay stay sober, stay supportive, and stay strong. Cheers, guys. See you next week.